Salut, bienvenue à ton tuto de texte. Et aujourd'hui, c'est Monsieur Bizarre. So this text tuto is looking at Monsieur Bizarre. We're going to have it read to us by Papa Raconte. It's off of YouTube. Really good way of learning French, I think, the Mr. Men books. So Mr. Strange. Okay, let's go.
Monsieur Bizarre de Roger Hargreaves. Monsieur Bizarre avait de drôles d'idées, ou, si tu préfères, des idées bizarres. D'abord, il habitait sur un arbre. A-t-on idée?
Okay, so they're quite funny as well. So Monsieur Bizarre avait de drôles d'idées. Drôles d'idées. Notice that this is the imparfait. So they're setting the scene, telling us sort of like the background about who Mr. Bizarre is and how he lives his life, or how he lived his life. It's a story, so it's going to be in the past. So just notice the role of the imparfait in this. So if you've been relying a lot on the passé composé and think, oh, I'll just use the passé composé and that will get me through. You can start off that way, but if you want to be able to tell a smooth story, then you need both. You need passé composé and the imparfait. So Monsieur Bizarre avait, you wouldn't say a eu. Yeah, you would say avait de drôles d'idées, ou si tu préfères, des idées bizarres. So he had funny ideas or strange ideas. And then we've got imparfait here again, because we're describing his life as it was. No interruptions. Passé composé will be events, things that interrupt him. So d'abord, il habitait sur un arbre. So sur being he lived on a tree. And also, can I just point out, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can map this back to English. So we would say had there, and he lived. So some people think the passé composé would be the equivalent of I drank, I ate, etc. But actually, mapping it back to the English is actually a really complicated thing to do. It's better to map, perhaps, to just think about what's its role in French. And its role in French is to describe things which are constant, or just to give description. Let's hear some more examples.
Un jour, Monsieur Heureux lui demanda « Pourquoi habitez-vous sur un arbre ?»« Parce que j'ai essayé d'habiter sur le sol, » répondit Monsieur Bizarre. « Mais il était trop haut. Alors je me suis installé sur un arbre pour être plus près du sol. » « Bizarre, » murmura Monsieur Heureux. « Merci, » répondit Monsieur Bizarre.
So one day, Mr. Happy asked him. Now, you say, oh, what's this tense then? So this is the passé simple. So this is only used for written French. And it's the equivalent of the passé composé, but for written French. You can find it in your Becherel. Now, you don't need to know this tense to speak, but you will need, you'll see it when it's written. So that would be the passé simple. So when you're writing, and if you're writing a novel, then you're going to use the passé simple. I wouldn't worry about it, but you'll see it in books. But then, pourquoi habitez-vous sur un arbre? So that's his present tense. Why do you live in a tree? And then we've got a little bit of passé composé. Now, why are we seeing passé composé in this written bit, whereas we've got passé simple là? Have you got any idea? It's because the line represents that this is an exchange. This is a conversation. So now that Mr. Bizarre and Monsieur Heureux are talking to each other, whilst they're talking to each other, so whilst it's in speech marks, if you like, it will go back to passé composé. So he lived in a tree, but the interruption was, I tried to live, j'ai essayé d'habiter sur le sol. I tried to live on the ground, answered Mr. Bizarre, but it was too high. So, and then, alors je me suis installé, passé composé. So I got myself settled in on a tree to be closer to the ground. Obviously completely nuts, this is. Strange, murmured Mr. Happy. Oh, thanks, replied Mr. Bizarre. Okay.
Et puis, Monsieur Bizarre mangeait des sandwichs. Bien sûr, tu ne trouves pas ça bizarre, mais c'était des sandwichs à la purée de pommes de terre. Il adorait ça. Un jour, Monsieur Curieux lui demanda « Pourquoi mangez-vous des sandwichs à la purée ?»« Parce que je n'aime pas les sandwichs à la choucroute !» répondit Monsieur Bizarre.
Okay, so again, imparfait, yeah? And then he was eating some sandwiches. And obviously you don't find that strange. But it was, again, imparfait, sandwiches of purée de pommes de terre, so mashed potato, which he adored. He adored that. One day, Mr. Curie asked him, "Why are you eating mashed potato sandwiches?" He said, "Because I don't like sauerkraut sandwiches."
Et puis, Monsieur Bizarre dormait dans une barque. Oui, dans une barque. Dans sa chambre, dans sa maison, sur un arbre.
So again, this is something he habitually does. Yeah, so he sleeps. He sleeps in a boat. Yes, not in a boat, in his bedroom, in his house, on a tree.
Un jour, Monsieur Costaud demanda à Monsieur Bizarre: Pourquoi dormez-vous dans une barque? Parce que les bateaux à moteur sont moins confortables, répondit Monsieur Bizarre. Comme tu peux t'en douter, Monsieur Bizarre habitait en Bizarrance. Connais-tu quelqu'un d'autre qui habitait en Bizarrance?
So one day, Mr. Strong, that's Mr. Strong there, asked Mr. Bizarre, why are you sleeping in a boat? Because motorboats are less comfortable, replied Mr. Bizarre. And as you can imagine, so tu peux t'en douter. Je m'en doute is I imagine, yes. Monsieur Bizarre lived in Bizarrance. Do you know anyone who's lived in Bizarrance?
Oui, c'est ça, Monsieur Étonnant. Monsieur Étonnant et Monsieur Bizarre étaient de très bons amis. Monsieur Bizarre allait souvent chez Monsieur Étonnant pour faire des puzzles. Mais il se lançait les morceaux de puzzle et comptait ceux qui tombaient par terre. Monsieur Étonnant allait souvent chez Monsieur Bizarre pour jouer aux cartes. Mais il déchirait les cartes et comptait les morceaux. A-t-on idée?
Right, so there's nothing normal here. So Monsieur Étonnant, do you know who Monsieur Étonnant would be? I don't know what the actual Mr. Man is, but it's étonnant means surprising. So Mr. Surprising and Mr. Strange were very good friends again, imparfait. If I haven't convinced you yet that imparfait has a big role to play. Monsieur Bizarre allait, yeah, again imparfait, often to Mr. Étonnant's house to do some puzzles. But they threw the bits of puzzle and counted those which have fallen on the ground. Imparfait, imparfait, imparfait. And Mr. Étonnant went often to Mr. Bizarre's to play cards, but he tore up the cards and counted the bits. What a strange idea. So, page full of imparfait there.
Cette histoire se passe durant l'hiver, où il a neigé en Bizarrance. Il ne neige pas souvent en Bizarrance, mais cette année-là, il a neigé, pour la plus grande joie des vers de terre. À ton avis, de quelle couleur était la neige?
So, this story takes place during winter, where it had snowed in Bizarrance. So there we go, that's an interruption. Yeah, that's not a continuous thing in Bizarrance. So, il a neigé, passé composé. It doesn't snow very often in Bizarrance, but this year it snowed, passé composé, for all the happiness of the ver de terre. This is a ver de terre who pops up quite a lot in Mr. Man books. It's not snail, a worm. So, in your opinion, à ton avis, what color was the snow? Était la neige. Très bien.
Eh bien non, elle n'était pas blanche. En Bizarrance, la neige n'est pas blanche. Elle est jaune. Ne demande pas pourquoi, elle est jaune et voilà tout.
I don't think we want to ask ourselves why. So the snow, elle, wasn't white. In Bizarrance, the snow was not white. It's yellow. Don't ask why. Don't think we will.
Donc ce matin-là, lorsque Monsieur Étonnant se réveilla, tout le pays était couvert de neige jaune. Il regarda par la fenêtre. « Oh !» dit-il. « De la neige !» Quel événement! Il courut chez son ami Monsieur Bizarre.
So now when we see these, this is the passé simple, which is the equivalent of passé composé. So he woke up. So that morning there, when Mr. Étonnant woke up, the whole country was covered in yellow snow. And he looked out the window. So these are all passé composé, yes. And he said, "Oh, look at the snow! What an event!" And he ran to his friend Mr. Bizarre.
Monsieur Bizarre dormait encore, dans sa barque. « Réveillez-vous !» cria Monsieur Étonnant. « Regardez par la fenêtre !» Qu'y a-t-il? Grommela Monsieur Bizarre. Il se leva en se frottant les yeux et s'approcha de la fenêtre.
So Mr. Bizarre was still sleeping. Encore can mean still, yes, as well. In his boat, obviously. Wake up. That's what we've just talked about in pronunciation. Réveillez-vous, criait Monsieur Étonnant. So wake up, shouted Mr. Étonnant. Look out the window. What is it then? Moaned Mr. Bizarre. And he got up and he rubbed his eyes and he looked out the window. He went towards the window.
Oh, dit-il, de la crème à la vanille. Ce n'est pas de la crème, cria Monsieur Étonnant. Vous voyez bien que c'est de la neige. Ce jour-là fut un des plus beaux jours de leur vie. Ils firent une bataille de boules de neige. Les boules de neige de Monsieur Étonnant étaient étonnamment rondes.
So he said, oh, so, cream and vanilla, or vanilla cream. It's not cream, shouted Mr. Étonnant. Can't you see? It's obviously snow. And you can tell that by his intonation, actually. And notice that we've got a lot of passé sampling here. So on that day, it was one of the most beautiful days of their life. And they had a snowball fight. And the snowballs of Mr. Étonnant were surprisingly round.
Les boules de neige de Monsieur Bizarre ressemblaient plutôt à des cubes.
Whereas the snowballs of Mr. Bizarre looked more like cubes. Again, imparfait, ressemblait.
Ils firent un bonhomme de neige étonnamment bizarre, ou bizarrement étonnant.
Okay, so they made a snowman, which was surprisingly strange, or strangely surprising, whichever you prefer.
Si tu préfères. Au début de l'après-midi, Monsieur Bizarre dit joyeusement « Venez, nous allons faire de la luge !»« Mais nous n'avons pas de luge, » répondit Monsieur Étonnant. « Eh non !» soupira Monsieur Bizarre. Monsieur Étonnant réfléchit un instant. « Mais si !» s'écria-t-il. « Nous en avons une !»
So at the beginning of the afternoon, Mr. Bizarre shouts happily, "Come on then, let's go and do some sledging." "But we haven't got a sledge," answered Mr. Surprising. "Oh no." Whoops.
Monsieur Étonnant et Monsieur Bizarre.
Sorry. That was surprising.
Nous en avons une. Monsieur Étonnant et
It's surprisingly out of control, but they realized they did have one. Okay, sorry about that.
Monsieur Bizarre disparurent dans la maison de Monsieur Bizarre. Ils réapparurent bientôt. Ils transportaient le lit de Monsieur Bizarre. C'était ça, leur luge.
So Mr. Surprising and Mr. Bizarre disappeared into the house of Mr. Bizarre, and they reappeared soon, transporting the bed of Mr. Bizarre. That was their sledge.
Ce fut une merveilleuse journée. Et ce soir-là, après le dîner, ils mangèrent de la tarte aux spaghettis. Monsieur Bizarre dit à son ami « À quoi allons-nous jouer maintenant ?»« À la bataille » proposa Monsieur Étonnant. « Il n'y a plus de cartes !» répondit Monsieur Bizarre. « Nous les avons déchirées. » Et il réfléchit. « J'ai une idée, nous allons jouer aux devinettes. » D'accord, qui est-ce qui commence?
So it was an amazing day, a wonderful day. And that evening after dinner, they ate spaghetti tart. Mr. Bizarre said to his friend, "So what are we going to play now?" And he said a battle, so, a card battle, he suggested. "But we haven't got any more cards," answered Mr. Bizarre, "because we've torn them all up." And he thought about it and he said, "Oh, I've got an idea. Let's play guessing game, devinette, guessing." So if someone says devine, it means guess. Okay, let's start.
Devine.
There you go, devine, guess.
Merci d'avoir écouté cette histoire.
Voilà, très bien. Ok, bon, merci d'être venu, merci d'avoir écouté, et puis très bonne journée. Merci, au revoir. Au revoir.